Hey everyone, it looks like we are live. Welcome back to our monthly deep dive into the witch's path to recovery, right? We are talking about a magical approach to healing and transformation. And I'm super excited. Some of you may have um, seen the ones previously. This might be your first time. And we don't have a whole bunch of folks in the audience today, but I might be able to take some questions too. So stay tuned to the end. All right, before we get started and I jump into all of the lovely content, we are just going to start by lighting a candle, taking 3 slow, deep breaths in just to ground ourselves into this moment in the here and now. Hi, everyone. Welcome again. My name is Sunshine, the pink-haired sober witch, and my own sobriety date when I finally admitted that I was ready to let go of alcohol for good in my life is October 9th of 2019. So as of recording this, I've got just about 5.5 years. I'm just shy of a couple of weeks. And it has been an incredible journey throughout those entire 5.5 years. Um, I have always felt like I'm a witch. I've been practicing witchcraft since I was in my teenage years, but it wasn't until I stepped into recovery that I realized how important embracing that spiritual belief and that path was for me on my recovery journey. And there's been a lot that I've worked through over the course of these last 5.5 years. Right now, though, right? Because I have all this time of when I let go of alcohol. Right now, I am working through my own disordered eating and body dysmorphia using the exact same steps in the approach that I'm sharing with you in a lot of these tools, using these same tools. Because the reality is that these tools were not just created for addiction, just for alcoholism. These tools were created to help transform a witch transform a witch's life into something that was much more beautiful and meaningful and powerful and represented happiness and hope and joy, right? So we're going to start each and every one of these sessions off with the witch's serenity prayer. So I would encourage you, if you're watching this or listening, just if you're watching, you can read along. If you're listening, maybe just repeat it after me. I'm just going to pause. O divine universe, grant me the power of water to accept with ease and grace what I cannot change, the power of fire to invoke the courage to change the things that I can, the power of air for clarity to know the difference, and the power of earth to stay grounded in my highest vibrational path. Today, my dear friends, in each one of these monthly webinars, we're going to be exploring the different recovery tools that have been created to support the witch in recovery. And we've already talked about the witch's philosophy and the approach, and I've given a brief introduction to the fact that I've rewritten the traditional 12 steps. And this is the very first time that we're going to start diving specifically into those steps. We're not going to go through them all today, but we are going to start, right? These 12 steps were created for a witch, right? I'm sorry, 13 steps. And the reason why I did that, and I took the 12-step approach and kind of reevaluated and looked at how I was working it as a witch, is because these steps are familiar to a lot of people. You may have already been been in a 12-step program. You may have heard about it. You may know somebody else, or you may even need to step into a 12-step meeting to help strengthen and support your recovery. But these steps are yours as a witch. They've stripped out any of the Christian overtones that may be present in the 12 steps. And I am not saying that every 12 step doesn't respect this higher power that doesn't tell you it's a God of your own choosing, the God that you get to decide. But the truth is, a lot of communities are going to be heavily Christian, right? It's the most popular religious practice in the United States. And therefore, it's not going to be uncommon that you might see or hear or experience some Christian overtones during those meetings. And let's be real, they refer to, the term God is used in a lot of the literature. And so we're removing all of that. And we're putting magical tools, magical practices, things that are aligned with the spiritual path of a witch into these. It's going to honor your intuition, your inner knowing, your psychic gifts. It's going to honor the truth that you have the power to transmute your shadows into light. Just to give you a bit of an example, we've got a couple of them, not the ones that we're going to touch on today, but we talk about shadow work in these steps. We talk about invoking magic, and we talk about crafting rituals, right? These things aren't said in the traditional 12 steps. They're only available in the 13 steps of recovery for the witch. Today, we're going to focus on the first two, right? Just the first two. And the very first one is, relatively similar. Embrace powerlessness and seek change. And the second one is to trust in divine guidance. So you're going to see some similar flavors here, right? You're going to see some similar flavors, but we've shifted that so that it aligns and has resonance with your spiritual paths, right? So let's dive in. Step one, right? That very first step, right? The very first step in recovery is embrace the powerlessness and seek change, right? I accept that I am powerless over my addiction and that my life is not the way that I desire because of it. This acceptance is like surrendering. And I've had a lot of conversations and I've had a lot of folks kind of talk about, and maybe even talk at me, that they don't like the term powerlessness, right? Because, we have power inside of us. And I agree with that sentiment. But I've come to believe, and in my own personal practice and experience, is we have to realize that we are not in control when it comes to whatever may be ailing us, our addiction, our trauma, our self-inflicted, abuse, whatever it is. We actually don't have control in it, right? We're powerful, but we have to surrender to that truth that we're not in control. That surrendering opens the doorway to transformation. That surrendering becomes the very first act of magic that you get to do in recovery. You basically get to say, hey, universe, I get it. I understand it, right? I get it and I understand it, and I am powerless. I need your help, right? I need your help. Why this matters, right? I want to be very clear. It's going to open that door, but the biggest thing is it humbles that ego. When we want to jump directly or first into saying that we have power, right? That we're not powerless, right? We have the ego coming into play, right? I picture in my head, the picture that I'm getting is like, someone standing up and their chest puffed out like, I have power, right? I have power. Like that alcohol doesn't have power over me, right? I have that power, right? But the reality is you wouldn't be in the place as you are, whether that's suffering from alcoholism, drug addiction, sex addiction, overeating, gambling, trauma, self-abuse, codependency. You wouldn't be in those positions if you had that power. You've become powerless. You have to surrender and let go. It's going to humble the ego, right? And it's going to open that door for healing. And it's going to create the space that you need to be able to make a transformation. It also is very clearly express to the universe then that you don't want to do this alone, that you do need some help, right? I don't know if any of you are like me, but I remember, and I think about this often. My first year, I became sober. I stepped into recovery completely in 2019, but I tried in the beginning of 2019 to reevaluate and change my relationship with alcohol. I went about 80 something days, 80 something days without alcohol, kind of exploring it, trying to ask myself things, right? Trying to understand why I drank in the first place. And then I drank again. Right? I wasn't at that point of being able to surrender. I still thought that I could control it. There is this piece of me that still thought I could moderate, that I was okay, that it wasn't that bad, it wasn't that big of a deal. That's not the truth. I had to stop fighting it. So I relapsed, right, in March. I drank again all the way till about July. I think it was like July 27th of that year. And I walked into my therapist's office after a 10-day vacation, going through alcohol withdrawals, crying, and finally admitting for the first time that I was actually an alcoholic and that I couldn't do it. Like no, I had to surrender. And I would love to say that that was the moment, that was it, right? But the truth is and that particular point, I was willing to go ahead and admit that, but I was not yet ready to take the other steps. Right. So I did that first step. I admitted at that particular point, that towards that end of July, but I relapsed again on my 40th birthday because I didn't have all of the tools that I needed to continue on the path of recovery. I didn't have this. Right. As I mentioned, when we're talking about witchcraft, right, the universe is listening. Our gods, our goddesses, the deities that we work with, the ancestors that we work with, all of these folks, they're listening. The collective consciousness is listening. Nature is listening, right? And it wants to hear this surrender, because when we say that, when we express it, when we write it, when we truly believe and have integrated it into a truth, we are finally telling the universe, I'm ready to co-create a new life. I want to do this with you. I no longer want to pretend like I know all the answers. I have it all figured out. I know what I need to do. And you're frankly, at this particular point too, you've probably been listening to a whole shit ton of what other people have told you rather than your own inner knowing and your own truth, right? The moment you do this is when you begin to reclaim your own power, right? You begin to reclaim it. You begin to take it back. You begin to start to be able to listen to your own, higher self, that side of you that truly knows, that side of you that's connected to the divine, that side of you that is whole. Only once you surrender, and kind of step out of the matrix, so to speak, are you able to begin to reclaim your power. And this is different than the traditional step one, right? We acknowledge that powerlessness, but we don't stay there. You do it in step one. It does not really remain, so to speak, right? Because we're going to start to build back ourselves in all of these other steps. We're going to take back that power. We're going to take back our inner knowing, right? We don't stay there. I think that's one of the things that kind of I'm really torn about personally when it comes to the tables of AA. I did 90 meetings in 90 days. And when you do that and you're on that kind of first step and you sit at a lot of first step tables, and I would hear these old timers that had 10, 15, 20, 30, some of them, I think the longest was like 47 years, tell their first step, tell how they got into recovery in the first place. And, I can appreciate it. I appreciate it because it helps me remember why I will never go back, right? But they became scripted in it, right? They became scripted in it. And it was like the same, and I would hear that same story each and every time. And there was this bit of like mm, broken record that it felt like, right? Like how happy are you really? How filled with joy is your life really? Or are you truly just not drinking, sitting in this first step? Not everyone was like that. And I'm certain maybe some of them had really joy-filled and beautiful lives. But this first step is not someplace for us to stay. And we're not to continue repeating it over and over again. We use it as a way to surrender and to tell the universe that we're ready for a change. So, a witchy tool, and I thought this would be interesting, that you can use, right? When it comes to that first step, it's just asking, what's in my highest and my best interest to surrender? What do I need to like just surrender to? What am I not paying attention to that I don't want to let go and surrender with? So I thought it would be fun to actually pull a card and see what shows up. Say. Mhm. The King of Swords. We just did some exploring on this particular card as it relates to recovery the other day. And this is, surrendering to the things that once triggered us, right? Surrendering to the fact that you may no longer be able to go to parties. You may no longer be able to go to a bar. You may no longer be able to hang out with certain friends. You may no longer be able to, even go into the party store, the corner store, the liquor store, right? There are certain triggers that may be difficult and challenging that may make you think about drinking. And the truth is, right? You don't have to participate in those. You don't have to hang out with those same friends. You don't have to go to the party. You don't have to go to the concert. You don't have to go to the sporting. You don't have to do any of those things. The most important thing for your recovery is to surrender to the truth that there are some things that may not be of service to you anymore, right? Which takes us to step two. I'm not going to lie. I think this was probably the most potent step. And this is why, for me, right here is what ended up keeping me in recovery, right? Trusting in divine guidance. I believe that a force greater than myself can lift me from the shadows, guide me towards higher vibrations, and a life illuminated by healing light. This power is my connection to the divine, my ancestors, my spirit guides, anyone that stands by me, the gods, the goddesses, the deities, the elementals, the ascended masters, right? Whoever it is that you want to choose to work, just your own higher self, the self of you that is truly divine, that is no longer ruled by an ego, whatever it is, whatever it is, you trust in that divine guidance. This isn't about just a higher power in the religious sense, right? We're not really just turning this over, right? We're saying, hey gods, hey goddesses, hey ancestors, hey, ascended masters, I want to work with you. Hey, spirit team, we're going to do this together. Whatever that unique connection is, right? And I knew that I was protected, that I had my guides around me. It's probably about, I don't know, 3 weeks into my recovery from October 9th. And I was sitting there, and I did 90 meetings in 90 days, and they were beautiful, and I'm grateful for them. But I was sitting there around the tables, and I'm listening to people talk. And I think it might have been the first time I sat at like a step table where they like talk about the steps, and they're going further into the steps. Or maybe I was even flipping through one of the books beforehand, and I realized the step 12, right? As we've, I don't remember the exact word of step 12, but it basically is like, as we've been on our recovery path, we've turned to now help other individuals that are inflicted by addiction, by alcoholism. And in that moment, I realized that my grandfather, the gentleman that I grew up with as my grandfather, who I knew was an alcoholic, met my grandmother with 8 children because of the 12th step. And in that exact moment right there, I knew that my grandfather was with me. I knew that my grandfather was now on my spirit team. I knew that my grandfather was someone that was watching over my back, that was trying to help me in my own recovery. And I started to talk to him. I knew. Right? It's not about a higher power as in a religious sense, but it's about that spirit team, that team of, etheric, energetic, angelic, however you want to refer to them, energies, beings, there helping to guide, to protect, and to take you on a beautiful path in life. Maybe I got this. I think I had this backwards. Let me just do this one. I think I just clicked on that. Yeah. Um, it's not, you can choose your own. And, frankly, my own understanding has changed throughout my recovery. My grandfather, right, at some point, in that year, even my cousin passed away from it. He showed up as one of my guides. I have deities that I've worked with, from Mercury, at first, to Jupiter, to Saturn. I've worked with Saturn a really long time. Ganesh, Hecate, Maman Brigitte, Bastet, all sorts of deities. You get to choose. You get to choose your connection, and it can evolve at any time. Now, as far as a witchy tool, to help you from your step 2, I encourage you to spend some time meditating and ask your guides, whoever it is, and you may know them or you may not, but just ask, hey, spirit, hey, guides, hey, ancestors, whoever's out there, ask them to give you a sign. Tell them what you want that sign to be, right? Which makes me think of a story, around that time of, that first year of recovery, I decided to get deeper and heavier into my witchcraft practice. And I started to pull tarot cards and read cards more often. And I started to do that on a regular basis, daily. I've pretty much pulled tarot cards almost every single day since I've been in recovery. But at some point, I wondered whether or not I should focus on any of my mediumship abilities, my ability to speak to the beings that are on the other side of the veil. And I tried to practice in a couple of Facebook groups, and I got some feedback that just really hurt, really set hard. And I was just like, maybe this is not for me. Maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I went out on a walk and I said, hey, guides, if I'm supposed to do this, right? If this is the path that I'm supposed to walk down, show me 3 bunnies. And I went walking that day and I didn't see anything. So the next morning woke up and ended up going for a walk again. And I said, hey guys, I'm still open. Would you show me 3 bunnies if this is what I'm supposed to do? And I got about a half a block away and I had a bunny hop right in front of me. I turned the corner and here goes another bunny, right next to me as well. And I'm just like, wow, right? Oh my goodness. And so I end up almost back to the house from the walk. And I say, I need you to show me these 3 bunnies close enough together so that I know that it's meant, this is the sign. And I turn the corner on my way, back to my house, and standing 3.5 feet tall in a neighbor's front flower bed is a statue of a bunny. And I knew right there. So I didn't care so much what other people thought anymore, any of the feedback that people had. And I just dove right in. I started talking to spirit. And I'm an incredibly grateful psychic medium now. I've traveled throughout the Midwest, have worked with clients in person and virtually. I've run gallery readings with, full audiences in them. And I love it very much. I will probably say this each and every time that we go ahead and we jump into looking at any of these tools, right? Daily ritual is going to be your most potent tool. And the thing is, a lot of times when people hear the word ritual, or they hear the word spell, they think of something that is very complicated, right? They think of a spell that's going to take you 7 days, 2 hours, even 30 minutes. But these things don't have to be complicated and they don't have to take a lot of time, right? But the power of having a regular daily ritual helps to keep you grounded, centered, right? And set on a very intentional purpose, right? It can be your check-in. Maybe it is just the card pull every morning to ask, what do I need to know for my recovery today? Right? It could just be lighting a candle. It could be as simple as when you're brushing your teeth every morning, just asking your guides to protect you and keep you safe. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be consistent. And the simpler you can do it, the more likely you will to continue to do it regularly. Let's remember, my dear friends, recovery as a witch is just different, right? It's just different. We're going to use our psychic abilities. We're going to use magic. We're going to use spell work. We're going to use, Reiki, healing, sound, all of these things in order to bring about the transformation in our lives that we want. If you've gotten this far with me and you do have any questions, you've listened to this, I would encourage you to go ahead and reach out. You can drop a note into the chat. I will get that at some point. Drop a comment over on the video and I will get that as well and see what you got to say. And I would encourage you to join us again next month as we'll continue diving deeper into these steps. That's what we're going to be focused on in these coming weeks. We're going to dive deeper into these steps. We'll see. I was able to get through steps 1 and 2 in just about 30 minutes. So I could probably go ahead and add on another step. So we might do 3, 4, and 5 next week. Or not next week, next month. That's what I'll aim to do. And I'll let you know that if you happen to be ready for more right now, you want more, you want to explore more, you want to see more of these tools that are available. It's really simple. You can just go ahead and visit the soberwitch.life, right? And download the Sober Witch Life mobile app. This is the only mobile app that has been made for witches by witches, and it's home of the absolutely free Sober Witches Toolkit. It has all of the 13 steps, a whole bunch of other tools that are available for you, and you have access to a free weekly recovery circle for witches as well. All right. So, my dear friends, I hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you found it insightful. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, until next time, much love from me to all of you.